Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily's Excellent Epics, and today I have for you my pile of possibilities for the R Fantasy Bingo. Now, I have never done the R Fantasy Bingo. I've started it like once or twice and then just never completed it. This year I feel like I've got some picks that I was planning on reading anyway, so I'm hoping this might be the year that I actually finish it. We shall see. Um, so you can find R is for like the Reddit Fantasy Bingo. You can find the prompts and suggestions. Like if you just like I just Googled R Fantasy Bingo 2025 and it took me to the site and then it clicked like for every one of the prompts they have suggestions for both the easy mode and the hard mode. So in R Fantasy Bingo, you get a bingo board and then there's like the regular mode, and then there's also like a way to do it hard mode wise. I am not trying to do hard mode for every single prompt. I don't think for me it's going to be physically possible. Just it's not going to be possible. Two, another rule that they have for our fantasy bingo is you can only have one book be a reread, and you cannot repeat authors. So I was able, and I did manage to do this with all books that I already own except for one on KU. So I am pleased with how this worked out for me. There is also, you can, if there's one prompt that you don't think is going to work for you, you can switch that prompt out for a prompt from a previous year. I am doing that. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, the first prompt in the first row is, oh, I should add, I have my Chromebook here, or not my Chromebook, my laptop here on the side. So if I'm looking to the side, I'm looking at the prompts. I have two decent sized pile of books next to me. It's going to be interesting as I go through this. They're all going to go tumbling everywhere. One thing to know, I'm not going to give descriptions over the books as we'll be here forever. There's already 25 books. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first prompt is a knight or a paladin, and the hard mode is that they have to have a promise or an oath that they have to keep. And I'm going to read Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. And this is the fifth and the final installment in the first arc of Stormlight Archives. And yes, we have Knight's Radiance in here, so that will work. It would also work for a later prompt of like finishing a series, but I'm going to use it for Knights or Paladin. The second prompt is a hidden gem, and that is if it has 1,000 or less ratings on Goodreads, and it has to have that rating when you read the book. Like you can't like pick the book and then read it later and then oops, it has more than 1,000 ratings. It has to have that rating when you read the book. I know that I'm not going to be able to complete that prompt, so I substituted out that prompt, and I substituted it for a 2021 prompt where the book has to be between 500 to 800 pages, and that is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I was planning on reading this anyway. Uh-oh, my Chromebook just went dead. There we go. Then the next prompt is that it was published in the 1980s. The hard mode is by an author of color. I'm just going to do simple mode, and I'm going to read The Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett. Someone recommended that I read this years ago. I don't know if I'm going to get along with Terry Pratchett. I didn't care for Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I've heard that the humor is pretty similar. So we shall see. The good news is that it's relatively shorter compared to chunky fantasies. So if I don't get along with it, it's okay. It's okay. I will have given it a go. The next prompt in the first row is high fashion. That the clothing or fashion is very important to the plot. The hard mode is that the character makes clothes or fiber art. And this was actually recommended like in the prompt, like when our Fantasy Bingo put out the prompt, this was like a recommended book. I was planning on, I want to read it. I bumped it up on my timeline to read. And that is Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. Like, look how stunning that cover is. Looking forward to reading this. And then the next prompt and last prompt in the first row is Down with the System. The character works to disrupt some kind of system. And the hard mode is that it cannot be a government system, because so much dystopian is they are working to downplay the government system. I don't know if this is going to be hard mode, but this is also recommended. And that is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. So we'll see about that. Okay, then the next row, the first prompt is Impossible Place. That it is set somewhere that would break a physicist, like it defies the rules of physics. And that would be Piranesi by Susanna Clark. So here's something you'll notice. It's a nice shorter book. Here's something that you'll notice too. I worked hard to try to find a good mix and worked really hard on trying to find books that were shorter because fantasy books can be so long. And the ones that were longer, I was like, I'm hoping that they'll be quicker reads. Not Wind and Truth won't be a quick read for me, but everything else, I think, like Romantasy is typically a quick read. All right, then the next prompt is a book in parts. So the book is told in sections like part 1, part 2, part 3. Hard mode is it has 4 or more parts. I don't think this is hard mode, and that's okay. And that would be Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. This for sure has 2 parts. Beyond that, I don't know. Excuse me. So I do know I have to read the book prior to this, and then when I do read Tower of Dawn, I am going to do the tandem read for Empire of Storm and Tower of Dawn, but I've been working through Throne of Glass this year. The next prompt is Gods and Pantheons, that it has divine beings, and the hard mode is like multiple pantheons are involved. So Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, like, and the Olympians, like I've been reading through that series. That would easily work. But I also would like to read Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I've never read a book by her, but I've heard fantastic things about this book. So then the next prompt is the last book in a series. So finish the series. And the hard mode would be if there are 4 or more books in that series. Now, I easily could have done Wind and Truth for that one, but I'm already using it for my Knights. I could have done Lost Metal because I need to read Lost Metal before Wind and Truth. But I cannot repeat Brandon Sanderson. So the only other option that I have that I'm like, oh, I can easily finish this series, that would be Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is the second in the duology, the Crimson Moth duology, and I've been meaning to read this ever since this came out, so I'm looking forward to reading this and finishing the series. I mean, I was planning on reading it anyway. Might as well use it for last in the series. Then the next prompt is a book club book. So read any book that has been part of the Our Fantasy book club and they give you a spreadsheet. Like, here are all the books that we've done for our book club. And the hard mode is participate during that bingo year. Participate in the book club. So of the books that are on there and that I also own and would like to read, I'm going to be reading City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the first book in the David Bode trilogy. And I really enjoyed the Adventures of Mina al-Safrafi, so I've had this on my TBR for far too long. So yay, I have a reason to dive into this world. All right, the next row, the first book in the third row, is a parent protagonist. So the parent, the main character is either a parent or they have a child that they are taking care of. And the hard mode is that the child is also a major part of the story. Now, fifth season by N.K. Jemisin easily would fit this prompt. I am not using fifth season for that though. I am going to be using instead The Sword of Kaigan by Emma Wong, and this also fits the hard mode. So, another book that I've been meaning to read for far too long. So, here we go. The next prompt is LGBTQIA plus main character. Hard mode is that. Sorry, I just lost my spot on my spreadsheet. Hold on. Where is it? Here we go. No. What just happened? I'm sorry. I misspoke. Hold that thought. Okay, so after Sword of Kaigan, I apologize. The prompt is epistolary. It primarily features letters or journals in telling the story. And the hard mode is that it's told completely through those letters or journals. I'm not doing hard mode, but I am going to be reading This Is How You Lose a Time War by Amal E. Mothar and Max Gladstone. I've heard really good things about this book. Looking forward to reading it. This would also work for the LGBTQIA plus prompt. So, but we're going to use it for epistolary. And I planned on reading it anyway for another challenge. The next prompt is a book published in 2025. And the hard mode is that book is also a debut. I'm not doing hard mode for this prompt, but I am going to be reading Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yumbao. So looking forward to reading this one. The next prompt is that the author is a person of color, and the hard mode is that it's horror. I don't do horror, so there's that. So instead, I'm going to be reading The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This has been on my TBR for a few years now. I need to read this book. Like, it has to happen. It has to happen because I'm using it for other reading challenges too. So, yeah, it's going to happen this year. Then the next prompt is a book I don't have physically. This is on KU. The prompt is that it's small press or self-published, and then it cannot be like The Sword of Kaigan. It was self-published, but then it got picked up by a bigger publishing house. So when you read it, it still has to be self-published. Sorry, hair flies away. When you read it, it still has to be self-published or small press published. The hard mode is it has less than 100 ratings, or it's by a marginalized author. So the book that I'm using, I don't think is going to hit hard mode, and that's fine. Or I'm not sure if it hits hard mode. I don't know about the author, if they're in the marginalized group or not. But the book that I'm going to be reading is Murder at Spindle Manor, and that is a book that can be found on Kindle Unlimited. So, yay. I'm so glad that there are recommendations online for that prompt, because I was like, I don't know what to read. Okay, then the next row, first book in the next row is Biopunk. So this prompt is it needs to focus on technology and its consequences. And the hard mode is that the technology is not electronics-based technology. So I'm actually not going to read this book. So this is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've already read this book. Now, it would be my only reread, so I could technically do this, but I don't plan on rereading this book. I did order A Drop of Corruption. I am waiting for it to ship out to me, and that is book 2 in this series. whatever the series title is. I don't know. I don't know what the series title of this is. But either way, I plan on reading A Drop of Corruption. There is biotechnology in this that involves plants and plant life. So there we go. Okay, then the next prompt is elves or dwarves. That elves and dwarves are featured in the book, and the hard mode is that the main character is an elf or dwarf. I will be able to hit hard mode on this. So technically I can use book 9. I'm currently reading it, and I created this stack. I realized I could have used the book that I'm currently reading right now. But I built this stack of books yesterday, and I was reading my book last night. So I can use Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. This is book 9.5, Unraveled. And this is a book series that features Sophie Foster and her friends, and they are elves. So I have hit hard mode on this one. Yay. Then the next book is LGBTQIA plus main character. Hard mode is that the character also is a member of another marginalized group. So for that, I'll be reading Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name right. And this features a transgender runaway. I'm assuming this would fit. Yes, it would fit another marginalized group. It would be hard mode. So, okay. Then the next prompt is reading 5 science fiction fantasy short stories. Hard mode is if you read the entire anthology. I could do hard mode with this. I don't know if I will. I'm not a big fan of short stories. I said it. But I plan on reading The Inheritance by Robin Hobb and Megan Lindholm. Now here's the thing. This is by my favorite author, Robin Hobb. Megan Lindholm is the name that she uses for writing science fiction. Robin Hobb is for fantasy. This does have a Realm of the Elderling short story in it I need to read. So there are 3 fantasy stories in here that I have not read and 2 science fiction book stories. I read the first science fiction story when I got this book, and I was like, I didn't care for it. It was dark. But there are enough stories in here that I can read. And the cool thing about this book is, if I can find it, it is signed. And those signed books are going to become more rare as she's going to stop. She lives in Alaska, and she travels down to a university in Washington to do her book signings, and at their university bookstore. And she's just announced that this go around is going to be the last time that she signs books, because she's getting older. It's harder for her to travel. So, all right. Then the last prompt in that row is A Stranger in a Strange Land. And that character is a foreigner in a new country. And hard mode is that they are an immigrant or a refugee. And from what I understand, this will fit hard mode. And that book is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. So looking forward to reading that. I was planning on hopefully picking this up in May anyway. So works out well for me. All right, then our last and final row. The first prompt is recycle a square from a previous year. And in 2019, there was a prompt about vampires. And the character, it involved vampires. And I don't know what the hard mode for that square is. I was like, I'm not worried about doing hard mode. So it didn't bother me. So I'm going to be reading The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, as this is about the adopted daughter of the Nightborn Vampire King. Vampires are featured in here. Then the next prompt, I will be able to do hard mode. And the prompt is read a cozy fantasy and that author is new to you. So I'll be reading The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. Look how cozy that is. Let me grab. Here we go. Then the next prompt is the title is a generic title, and they give you like keywords that need to be in the title. One of them is like blood or broken, court, shadow, realm. And then the hard mode is it features 2 of those generic words, or it features a color. It has the generic word and a number, or the generic word and a color. So I'll be reading 5 Broken Blades by May Corland, which I was planning on reading anyway this year. The next prompt is not a book, and it was do something fantasy, science fiction, speculative related that is not reading a book. So like play a video game, catch up on a series, something like that. And then the hard mode is post a review to our fantasy. So I plan on catching up on the Wheel of Time series. I watched the first season. I started watching the second, but I have not finished it. So I'm going back, and I figured this summer I will catch up completely on Wheel of Time. And then last but not least, the prompt is pirates, that the characters engage in piracy. And the hard mode is that these are not seafaring pirates. And someone said in the Books of Babel that they engage in piracy. So super excited because this is not a very long book comparatively. It's about 400 pages. So that works. I'm going to read Sunland Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. And that is my plans for our fantasy bingo. Now here's the deal. I might switch out like one book. There's one book in there in that pile that I was like, I'm not sure if I'm getting along with this book. So if I find a book that would fit that prompt instead, I'll switch that book out. But overall, all these books are books that I've been super excited to read and I've been meaning to read, just haven't read yet. So here we are. Oh, I could read also another option. Actually, I might switch out. Okay. So I might switch out Light from Uncommon Stars because I realized I forgot. I think The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I was planning on reading, features an intersex characters. So that would work for that prompt. So I don't know. That's the book that I might switch out. So we shall see. At any rate, have you read any of these books? Do you have any plans to read these books? Are you doing our fantasy bingo? Have you done it before? Give me some tips and tricks because I haven't completed a reading challenge in years. I think I love to like come up with my pile of possibilities, but I'm such a mood reader that sometimes it's hard, or like different shinier things steal away my attention. So I need to finish out a challenge, and the hardest reading challenge that you'll ever do this year, it's not going to happen. I know that. Maybe I can get our fantasy bingo instead. As always, talk to you later. Happy reading, and please like, subscribe, hit the notification button. If you've watched this far, since it's our fantasy bingo, you can either do like a fantasy thing. Like if they've got like since it's science fiction, leave like stars. I know. If you're more of a science fiction reader, read some stars down below. If you're more of a fantasy reader, leave like a wizard or a dragon for emojis. If you're not quite sure what to comment but want to show some love. And as always, talk to you later. Happy reading. Bye.